Midland Mencap is an all-inclusive charity for disabled people. They have been funded by Sport England to run a scheme called Parkride. The scheme has all kinds of bikes that have been modified so everyone gets the chance to ride. Imagine going to Parkride and having a great afternoon out in the park cycling as a family. After the session, you are handed 4 different evaluation forms regarding your sporting habits. There are forms for both the parents and carers and the children with disabilities to complete. Here one of the participants shares her thoughts.
Personally feel that the forms that the Midland Mencap currently have to evaluate their sessions aren't really made for children with SEND.
Evaluation forms are essential for the development and growth of a scheme as they provide valuable information on areas that can be targeted or improved. However, if the correct person is not filling out the form, then the data will be inaccurate. We plan to do 3 family focus groups using the methodology of thinking aloud, along with some open questions at the end. Thinking aloud is where you ask the participant to talk aloud whilst completing a task. For example, they will say how they feel when reading each question, if it makes sense, if it's confusing, what they dislike and like. Thinking aloud not only looks at how an individual processes information, but can also be used to look at how different individuals carry out the same task. We chose this method because it allows you to evaluate the thought process and decision making of the participant when completing the form, while also giving you an insight into their true thoughts and feelings in that moment. At the end, we asked the participants some general questions regarding their thoughts on the forms. To work out the key problems that our research discovered, we used thematic analysis. Thematic analysis is a process where you extract key points from the transcript and code them into common themes. We followed the 6-step process of thematic analysis set out by Braun and Clark. Through this, we found 3 main problems that we are going to address. The first problem is that the form is not in a logical order and there is no pretext highlighting why the form needs to be completed. The second problem we identified was the clarity of the children forms. The forms are not clear for the children, with long sentences and unrecognisable symbols of the addition of being long. Thirdly, some of the questions are unsuitable in both the child and the family form. The questions regarding mental health in the family form may be too personal and not necessary for the questionnaire, while some of the questions in the child form may be more mainstream than special needs. To combat the disorganised structure of the form, we think all questions regarding one activity should be put together before moving on to the next activity, hopefully condensing the form, making it shorter and more user-friendly. Additionally, some participants were not clear on why the forms are needed, so some pretext could be included at the start to explain why the evaluation forms are needed and what they will be used for.
By considering the audience, the form should be created using Makaton symbols and following the Easy Read guidelines. Easy Read was designed to aid people with disabilities in processing and understanding information. With the support of Makaton symbols, which are used throughout SEN schools, the form should be more accessible for the children.
For the unsuitable questions, it would be an idea to remind the participants that the questionnaire is confidential, and by changing some of the mental health questions in the family form to tick boxes, it would feel less invasive. Within the child form, some of the questions regarding friendships and how the children feel may just be inappropriate and more suited to mainstream children, so we need to look at rewording those questions or changing them entirely so they are appropriate for the audience.
We found some limitations to our research. Firstly, in some of the focus groups, the children were present and became disruptive. This meant that it was difficult to hear the recordings. Another limitation is we could not get an opinion from a child about their experiences as none of the children had filled in the forms themselves. Finally, people may not have been totally honest in their opinions as they felt pressure to be positive regarding the organisation. Future research can involve looking at the effectiveness of Makatons compared to other sign language options, more research into the best layouts of forms for SEND individuals, and possibly looking at the use of digital devices for these kinds of forms.
This research will help Midland Mencap collect data for Sport England more efficiently and provide a template for evaluation forms across the UK. By restructuring the forms, looking at how questions are worded and designed, and by adding Makaton symbols to the forms, they should be more accessible and appropriate for less abled individuals. For the scheme itself, the improved evaluation forms will lead to retained participants, as participants will not be put off by long and confusing forms. Finally, it means that both Midland Mencap and Sport England will actually receive feedback from the desired audience.